Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. A high-profile American delegation, including Usha Vance, National Security Adviser Mike Waltz, and Energy Secretary Chris Wright, is set to visit Greenland, sparking backlash from both local and Danish leaders. Now, with U.S. interest in the Arctic growing under President Trump's renewed annexation rhetoric, questions swirl about American intentions in a region critical for military strategy and resource access. Joining us today on TVP World to break this down is Dr. Przemysław Piotr Damski, assistant professor at the University of Łódź. As an expert in Arctic geopolitics, U.S. foreign policy, and international diplomatic history, Dr. Damski provides us a timely lens on the motives, tensions, and historical echoes surrounding this controversial visit. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Welcome.
So, well, first of all, can you help us understand why this whole delegation is so controversial? Traditionally, when we see a high-level diplomatic visit, isn't that something to rejoice about?
No, because it was not consulted with the Kingdom of Denmark, and it was intentionally delivered to underline that Greenland is sovereign, but not in the way that Greenlanders want, but in the way that the United States, as they assume right now, have the right to take Greenland for themselves. So this is not a high-profile visit to show how Greenland is important both for the United States and Denmark, but to show that the United States can do in Greenland whatever they want.
Right, so perhaps that's where the controversy is coming from. Now, when it comes to the election that just took place earlier, I'm hoping you can help us also clarify some things, because when I'm examining the Republicans' rhetoric, it seems to be very different from what we are kind of interpreting the election result in this part of the world. So from what I've gathered, they actually see it positively as a step for Greenland to fight for its independence away from Denmark, and some are actually characterizing that as perhaps one step closer to, well, Greenland actually being a part of the United States. Do you think that read has any validity to it, or do you think they're just reading too much into the tea leaves?
They definitely read too much from that. First of all, the vast majority of the main Greenland parties are for independence. They only differ how to achieve this independence. And in fact, the results of those elections is not promising for the United States, because Greenlanders voted for the party which is quite moderate. So wants independence, but in the process of evolution and peace to gain eventually independence of Denmark. So it is not kind of violent action. We demand sovereignty right here, right now, which could be very promising for the United States, and then the United States could support such kind of activities. No, Greenlanders voted for stability, for peace, and for dialogue, not to become the part of the United States. Besides, a vast majority of Greenlanders set in polls that they don't want to be part of the United States. So Republicans are either manipulate, or they don't know what they are saying, or they are just lying.
All right. Do you think that this visit is also probably testing the water, see how Greenland reacts, see how the Denmark reacts, to see whether their interpretation of things are accurate?
Greenland is a part, autonomous, part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and this is unquestionable thing. However, as we observe what American administration is doing right now, she is pushing several different issues in international arena. And as we observe, negotiations between Russia and Ukraine do not look like President Trump wanted. So probably he is using different areas, like, for example, Canada or Greenland, in order to show that the United States is powerful, is meaningful, and they mean something in the in the world. That is why this Greenland seems quite promising from the point of view of strategy of the United States. We need to underline they have a military space base there. And we need to remember that the United States is also interested in natural resources, which are close to Greenland. Besides, they say about acquisition not only in case of Greenland, but also in case of Canada. So we have here several different, very aggressive statements which are put to the public opinion, delivered to the public opinion, at the same time as we observe Trump's intentions to put Putin and Zelensky to the negotiation table. And as we observe, this Russian-Ukrainian issue doesn't look like Americans want it.
Right. Donald Trump also cited the U.S. competition against China and Russia in this region as one of the biggest reasons why he wanted to take Greenland over. Can you help us understand whether or not the U.S. and China influence in Greenland is actually significant enough for the United States to sound that warning alarm?
For the past years, the United States was rather seen as the reluctant Arctic power. And it was only since 2013 when the United States became more interested in the region. However, Russia was much more meaningful because had better plan, just much more attractive for Scandinavian states. However, since 2022, and especially since Finland and Sweden became a part of NATO, the United States became more powerful than ever in the Arctic. Yes, Russia is important in the Arctic. Yes, Russia can be treated as a threat in the Arctic. However, the position of Russia is being weaker and weaker in the region because of the Russian-Ukrainian war. And Russian investments suffered a lot because of the war. China, of course, is an important factor in the region. Yes. But the remaining Arctic powers, I mean, the other than the United States, they closely cooperated with the United States in the past years. Besides, Canada cooperated very actively with the United States, not only within NATO, but also within NORAD. So the United States, while claiming that they, for example, Denmark is doing nothing or is a bad ally, like Vice President Vance said, they are not saying true. In fact, Denmark increased spendings for on the defense within NATO, and right now she's spending more than the declared 2%. So I do not see here any justifications for that. Besides, the United States, even if they claim they have threat from the side of China and Russia, what is the legal justification for the acquisition of Greenland? What is the justification for violation of sovereignty of Kingdom of Denmark and violation of the right for self-determinance of the Greenlanders? I see no such kind of justification.
Right, those are very good question posed there. Now, last but not least, where do you think things will go from here? Do you foresee more kind of these a little bit of aggressive, provocative actions going forward, or do you think that after testing the waters and getting some pushback, they might tone it down a little bit?
To be fair, I don't know, because last 2 months are so dynamic in case of not only international relations in Europe, but in Arctic, as we observed, that we don't know in which direction it is going. After Russian aggression in 2022, situation in the Arctic changed significantly. All Arctic states, except Russia, started to work closer with the United States. And it was very promising for the United States. It was in the interest of the United States. Right now, the United States decided to move it to the bin, to the trash, and act on its own. It's undermining all Arctic system. the United States since 2022 was the only significant pillar of the Arctic system since Russian state appeared abandoning the rules of the Arctic system by undermining Norwegian rights to Svalbard archipelago, or by claiming that Alaska is in fact Russian.
Right.
Right now, if the United States is acting that way, we don't know exactly in which direction it's going, and we can expect for perhaps kind of the anarchy in the region for around 30 years.
Right.
Arctic was the territory of peace and negotiation and the rule of international law. And even Russia obeyed the rule of international law in the Arctic. Right now, two most significant actors in the region, Russia and the United States, claim that the law is not significant here. So I don't know in which direction it is going. Unless Americans recognize that law should be recognized.
So we'll have to see how that develops in the future. But in the meantime, thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it, and thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. For more news and update commentaries, please stay tuned to TVP World.